Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Minister's better than this motion. Let's all agree with that. I think it's a hangover from the SNP spokesperson was saying. I think it's a hangover from Boris Johnson days when the Electoral Commission upset him, and so he wanted to influence them. But I mean, the Minister can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the government claims that this strategy will enhance the parliamentary accountability of the Electoral Commission, and increase public confidence in its work. But as everybody has stated here today, it's going to do the complete opposite. Exactly. And this strategy and policy statement is little more than an attempt to undermine the independence of the Electoral Commission and an attempt by this government to stamp its own agenda on the regulation of our democracy. And so what this is, it is a fight for our democracy and making sure, and you know, we need to take back control in this House. And I think it is important because trying to avoid transparency and accountability seems to be the hallmark of this government. Yeah. And don't just take my word for it. The Electoral Commission itself wrote to MPs this week stressing that the principle of independence is crucial to maintaining confidence in our electoral system. Yeah. And they warned us in this House, and I quote directly, the introduction of mechanisms such as a strategy and policy statement by which a government can guide an Electoral Commission's work is inconsistent with the independent role. Exactly. So if they're saying that, the Speaker's Committee is saying that, why is it that the Minister's trying to convince us otherwise? It really doesn't make any sense. No. And this, as we've heard many times, this isn't the first time this government has attempted to rig our democracy, force through a voter ID system which threatened to disenfranchise the most vulnerable in society. The government, and remember, and my honourable friend mentioned it, the honourable member for North East Somerset, when he made it slip out that it was a deliberate attempt to manipulate electoral outcomes in favour of the Conservative Party, and then went, whoops, made a mistake. I said it out loud, the quiet bit out loud. So it isn't a shock that the government is once again attempting to influence an independent body that oversees our elections. But it is something that should shock us all. Madam Speaker, this draft strategy and policy statement sets out the government's strategic and policy priorities for the Electoral Commission. It also contains guidance of which, and I quote, the Commission must have regard in the discharge of its functions. This places on them a concerning legal duty to consider first and foremost the government's priorities when fulfilling its duties. Exactly. If it does that, then it cannot be independent. And the whole point is it's supposed to be independent. Yeah. It is simply unacceptable for the government to direct the Commission on how it should carry out its functions. And do you know what, Madam Speaker? If a foreign government was wielding this much power over their elections, there would be calls to send in independent advisers to ensure that their elections were being held democratically. That is how bad this is. When people say, you know, do we have corruption in our government? I say, yes, we do. And I say, and this is an example of that. The government keeps focusing on prevention and detection of voter fraud, yet there is little evidence that voter fraud is widespread. Yeah. In fact, it's so rare. There was only 9 convictions.
Order. The Honourable Lady talked about corruption in government. I do want her to withdraw that. She needs to rephrase what she said, and she does know that. She's very experienced. So I would ask her to say that she would withdraw any allegations of corruption within government at this point. Dawn Butler.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I withdraw that I have said that the government is corrupt, or there is corruption in the government. I don't know for sure, but I withdraw. There are issues, though, Madam Deputy Speaker, that need tackling, and this doesn't do it. There are considerations that's rising, as we heard, like threats of AI, generative AI, the use of deep fakes, the spread of disinformation, the scraping of people's data. None of that is tackled today. And according to, and I wonder why, but according to fact-checking organisation First Draft, 88% of the Conservative Party's most shared online adverts in the final days of the 2019 general election were found to have contained misleading information. 88%.
Wow.
And so I hope that we can agree, and I hope the Minister will change his mind when he gets to his feet, because he is respected across the House, and this is going to damage his reputation.
Exactly,
so I do hope that he will change his mind, and I urge the House, as I said earlier, to take back control and reject this motion.